to breathe beneath clean skies and hear the ice-cold motion of a stream, to run wild until the landscape wore their shoes out. I thought they'd fight me harder than they did. In Oxford, they'd refused to walk anywhere. Maggie especially complained of the cold, the ice, the dark, the cars that passed too quickly through the rainy streets and shocked her legs with spray. But here, walking became something new and exciting. It had been September when we moved, 2 years ago now, in time for the new school year. The girls had watched with awe as summer's green faded and the burnished light of autumn emerged in the foliage. They liked running out in the morning mist, watching it dissolve to reveal the ochre flush of the fells. They filled their pockets with conkers and fir cones, took them home, scattered them over their bedroom floors, said they were making a bed for the hedgehog they planned to adopt over winter. I watched them, deeply satisfied. I'd long held a theory. Gus scoffed at the hippiness of it, but so what? That humans were homesick for the outdoors. This strange urge to shut themselves away from the elements, locked up in houses, cars, offices, thinking they were protected from the wind and the rain and the cancerous sun. It was rotting their very hearts, making them sick. They didn't know the cure was simple. Get outside, walk, breathe, live. Moving here had been good for everyone, though we'd done it mainly because of my work. At the time, I was researching the murky lives of the women surrounding the Romantic poets, the women who'd willingly tended to sensational but sick men who had abandoned domestic life and hurt themselves with sonnets. I need to be in Grasmere to do this, I'd told Gus. He suggested a holiday, but I needed more than that. A year at least, I said, maybe 2. We can't uproot the girls for a year or 2. If we need to move, we move forever or not at all. It was exactly the response I'd wanted. I'd mastered this particular skill over the years, sowing the seed of half my desire, then letting him grab and plant the rest. That way he'd always think of it as a joint decision, or, better still, his own idea. Gus was already retired when we moved. There were 22 years between us, and he was ready, I thought, and he agreed, for a more peaceful life. A secluded world away from the fog of the city, the grey sky that fell into the dull Thames, the shoppers and the crowds. "There'll be crowds in the Lake District," he said. "You can't get away from the tourists. Even in January they'll be there." What he said was only partly true. Tourists always filled the valleys. They hung around the lakes and towns, took their children to Peter Rabbit World, rode across Windermere and ate cream teas in lakeside gardens. They paid a duty call to Dove Cottage and came away reminded of why they'd hated Wordsworth at school. But few of them really left the Vales. They didn't see Helvellyn silenced by snow, or the high mountain tarns lying dark beneath the rocky edges of the fells. For most of the year, our home stood unseen. I rounded a curve in the mountain path and the cottage came into view. Lime-washed walls, slate roof, and a rose trellis, the branches knocking against the lattice in the breeze. So different from the 4-storey townhouse we'd owned in Oxford. The door was unlocked. I opened it and stepped into the old quarry brick hall that took me through to the kitchen. Gus sat in the rocking chair by the wood burner, reading the Westmoreland Gazette, all the news about stolen sheep, a campaign to save the post office, and the decision to close a crumbling footpath in Buttermere. He took no notice of the national news these days. He said the only way to survive what was going on in the world, climate change, a refugee crisis, the Tory reign of terror, was to live in ignorance of it. He never used to be like this. There was a time when he'd read a paper every day on his commute to Paddington, watching the evening news at 7 and again at 10, always making sure his opinions were informed. But his mind seemed empty now. It left too much space for dangerous, depressive pondering, and I had to take care around him. He didn't look up.